The night held its secrets close, and the world seemed to hold its breath as I trudged wearily along the gravel path, my steps slow and heavy. My name is Aiden, and I was a young man burdened by the weight of a job that demanded my presence in the darkest hours in a remote area somewhere in Napa, California. For as long as I could remember, I had worked the night shift as a guard at the sprawling farmhouse that stood at the outskirts of the town. The mansion, an imposing figure under the moonlight, was surrounded by fields that seemed to stretch into eternity. It was a quiet, desolate place that held a silence so profound it felt almost otherworldly. On this particular night, the air was heavy with a strange and frightening stillness, and a sense of foreboding clung to my skin like a second shadow. My shift had ended, and I longed to escape the suffocating embrace of that mansion and its secrets. The path home wound through a small forest, a shortcut that I had taken countless times before. But tonight, it held a darkness that seemed to mirror the one that clung to my thoughts. As I made my way through the trees, my heart clenched when I saw them. Two bodies suspended from the branches of a gnarled oak tree swayed gently in the breeze. The sight hit me like a punch to the gut, and for a moment I froze, my mind unable to process the horror before me. My first instinct was to turn and run, to escape the nightmare that had suddenly engulfed my world. But I was not a stranger to fear. It had become a constant companion throughout my life. I was orphaned at a young age, left to navigate the world alone. This job was all I had, a means to an end, a roof over my head. There was no one waiting for me at home, nowhere else to go. Taking a deep, shuddering breath, I forced my feet to move forward. Every step was a battle against the turmoil raging within me. The bodies swayed like grotesque pendulums, their features obscured by shadows, their identities hidden in the depths of the night. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat echoing the dread that consumed me. As I drew closer, a chilling sensation crawled up my spine, and I felt a pair of eyes boring into me. The silence was shattered by a voice, faint yet distinct, calling out to me, "Help, please." The words were a mere whisper, carried on the wind, but they pierced through me like a knife. My breath caught in my throat, and a cold sweat broke out across my forehead. The impossible had become real. One of the hanged men was alive, clinging to a thread of existence, his voice a fragile plea that sent shivers down my spine. I stumbled back, my mind reeling as I stared at the man who should have been lifeless, his body swaying in the moonlight. It was as if the very fabric of reality had unraveled before me, and I was thrust into a nightmare I could not escape. The man's eyes met mine, filled with an urgency that tugged at my conscience. "Help me, please," he repeated, his voice a fragile thread of desperation. His words were a lifeline, pulling me out of my shock-induced stupor. With trembling hands, I fumbled for my phone and dialed the emergency number, my voice barely above a whisper as I relayed the gruesome discovery to the operator. Time seemed to stretch, each second an eternity as I waited for help to arrive. The man's eyes never left mine, his gaze a mixture of gratitude and sorrow. And then, just as suddenly as he had appeared, he was gone, his body vanishing into the night like a specter released from its torment. The arrival of the police brought a whirlwind of questions and chaos. I recounted the events, leaving out the part about the man who had somehow defied death's grip. The authorities combed through the scene, their flashlights cutting through the darkness as they unraveled the grim truth behind the hanged bodies. Days turned into weeks, and the weight of that night settled into the depths of my being. I couldn't escape the memory of the man's pleading eyes, the echo of his voice in my mind. My sleep became fitful, plagued by nightmares that left me gasping for air, drenched in sweat. I returned to work, each step into the mansion a battle against the memories that threatened to engulf me. The once familiar rooms now held a chilling presence, their walls seeming to whisper secrets I was never meant to know. I tried to focus on my duties, to push aside the fear that gnawed at me, but the weight of that night was a burden I could never fully shake. I found myself avoiding the forest path, opting for the long route home, even when exhaustion tugged at my limbs. The world had become a minefield of triggers, each shadow and creak a reminder of the darkness that had enveloped me. In the eyes of the world, I was just a young man going about his life, a guard who had stumbled upon a gruesome scene. But beneath the facade, I carried a secret that threatened to consume me, the memory of a voice calling out from the brink of death, a voice that haunted my every waking moment. And so I lived in the shadows, haunted by an experience I could never share, a burden I could never escape. The hanged bodies were gone, but their specters remained, lurking in the corners of my mind, a constant reminder of the thin veil between life and death, between reality and the chilling unknown. Months passed, and the memory of that night began to fade, though the weight it left behind never lifted. The mansion still cast its imposing presence over the landscape, but I had grown somewhat accustomed to its eerie atmosphere. I focused on my duties, patrolling the grounds with a sense of vigilance born from the haunting ordeal. One night, as I walked the dimly lit corridors, a sound echoed through the stillness, a soft, haunting melody that seemed to emanate from nowhere and everywhere at once. I froze in my tracks, my heart pounding as I strained to locate the source of the sound. It was as if the very walls of the mansion were singing a mournful tune, carrying the weight of untold stories. Following the melody, I found myself in a small room, its walls adorned with faded paintings and weathered books. The music grew louder, more distinct, and my gaze fell upon an old piano, its keys being played by unseen hands. I watched in awe as the music filled the room, a melancholic symphony that spoke of loss and longing. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the music ceased. The room was plunged into silence once more, the spell broken. My breath caught in my throat, and I felt a presence, not a physical one, but a lingering energy that seemed to envelop me. It was as if the very essence of the mansion had reached out, seeking to share its secrets. I heard the unfamiliar voice uttering words that eluded my understanding. The voice held a strange familiarity, though it was muted and veiled, making it difficult to convey its message. Straining to grasp its meaning, I concentrated harder, my senses attuned to the enigmatic sound. It emerged from the obscurity like a whisper from the shadows. I focused more and more, and all of a sudden I realized that the voice I was hearing was that of the hanging body I had encountered before, and its desperate plea echoed hauntingly, "Please help me." For more captivating tales that unravel mysteries and delve into the unknown, we invite you to subscribe to our channel. Join us on a journey of intrigue and discovery as we bring you more enthralling stories that linger in the realm of the extraordinary.